I would like to introduce our presenters who were the winners of the Online Excellence Award for Innovation this year. From the OU K20 Center, a big welcome to Dr. Jackie Mania Singer, Dr. Leslie Williams, Dr. Linda Atkinson, Sharon Dean, Dr. Dawn Pierce, Lacey Pennington, Danny Maddox, and Christina Narosevich.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Online Excellence Showcase. My name is Jackie Mania Singer, and my co-presenters and I are going to share information related to online resources and services from the K20 Center. My co-presenters today are Dr. Dawn Pierce, Danny Maddox, and Lacey Pennington. Before we get started, I would like to take just a moment to thank our colleagues that contributed to the resources that we're sharing today. We definitely had the help of a much larger team at the K20 Center. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Danny Maddox to tell you more about the K20 Center.
Thanks, Dr. Mania. Hey, everybody, Danny here. So the K20 Center is involved in so many different facets of education in Oklahoma that I could easily spend like our entire presentation talking about everything that we do, but I'm going to try to distill it down really quick here. So K20 is a research and development center housed at the University of Oklahoma. Our mission is to cultivate a collaborative network engaged in research and outreach. Guided by this mission, we've been collaborating with partners across the state for 25 years promoting innovative learning practices. As you can see in this graphic right here, we use a 5-phase model in our work, engaging with multiple groups of stakeholders to affect meaningful change in the communities that we serve. And to meet the needs of these stakeholders, the K20 Center had a variety of web content produced by our projects within the center that focus on educational tech and the creation of online resources way before the nightmare that is COVID-19 hit. So now I'm going to highlight a few of these projects. First, the longest running program at K20 is the Oklahoma Educational Technology Trust, which began in 2001. OETT helps schools stay updated on educational tech and assist them with authentic tech integration in the classroom. OETT has worked with over 200,000 students and over 12,000 teachers and administrators in 330 schools across our state. You can see the dots on this map right here. Those are all the current and former OETT grant recipients. There's a few of them. So now I'm going to move on to Gear Up. Currently, there are 3 federally funded Gear Up grants facilitated out of the K20 Center, and they're the largest programs in our center. Gear Up works with school leadership, teachers, parents, students, and the community through a variety of services to help students be prepared for college or career tech when they graduate high school. K20 Gear Up partners with over 30 school districts, from urban districts like Oklahoma City Public Schools to suburban and rural districts like Shawnee, El Reno, Pauls Valley, and Broken Bow, just to name a few. And Gear Up funding was instrumental in establishing our award-winning game-based learning department, which has produced over a dozen educational video games. The games focus on topics like cognitive bias, growth mindset, financial literacy, STEM, and we have currently we have 13 games right now for students to play in the classroom, accessible on our Learn website. We have a new game about severe weather, risk assessment, and emergency management coming out this spring. That should be popular in Oklahoma, right? And speaking of our Learn website, here it is. So the K20 Learn website is a free online repository housing a plethora of resources for educators teaching all ages. Users can passively browse the website for professional development, lessons, strategies, games, and tech tools, or they can create their own account and construct their original content for their own personal use. Okay, so there you have it. That's a little snapshot of our largest technology initiatives operating out of the K20 Center. You'll notice that ILI logo there at the bottom corner of your screen. That's our big annual conference we have each year that Lacey's going to talk about here in just a little bit. We usually have that conference in person, and it draws nearly 1,000 people annually. But something or other happened in 2020 that meant we probably should not be packing 958 people into the embassy suites, right, Dr. Pierce?
That's correct. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but there was a rather large disruption to our systems in the way we do business. And wow, was it a crazy year. So I don't know if you remember, but around March, I think we all started to notice things were changing rather quickly in Oklahoma. Around March 12th, many of our stakeholder schools and locations across the state began to close. On March 15th, we had been given notification at our site that all those face-to-face type of services that we provide our schools needed to be canceled. So that transitioned into us moving into the summer, thinking about how we provide services to schools and offerings. And we did that through moving things to an online model. While we saw some different types of return to learn plans with our schools in August, we made, I think, a really important decision for us to continue to provide fully online services for the foreseeable future, mainly because of all the different ways that our stakeholders were engaging in their work. All of this timeline was really a prelude for what would be our biggest online endeavor, the transition of our annual Innovative Learning Institute to 100% virtual. All of this quick change in our stakeholders' environment brought about some of the most innovative programming that we have delivered to date. So how did we shift so quickly? Well, it was really about the reorganization of the system. First, we identified existing resources with a fast turnaround for publication and an ease of use for our stakeholders. We took steps to shift our professional learning into a support of both virtual and hybrid environments, modeling what our teachers needed in their environments. We also created resources for parents and family members, since many of them were serving as teachers in their homes. We took a few extra steps to establish a virtual learning team to aid in the creation of these types of learning environments. And we began to develop many activities and services in what we call the multimodality of synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences. So this next slide actually gives you just a snapshot of some of the examples of the content that we created during this very short window of time. And these, along with many of our other resources, can be found at the location that Danny referenced earlier, our K20 Center Learn page. But to speak more about our Innovative Learning Institute, Lacey, tell us more.
Thank you, Dawn. In addition to rethinking how we deliver services to our schools, we now needed to rethink how our annual conference, the Innovative Learning Institute, would look this year. And as we know, very different. The K20's Innovative Learning Institute, or ILI, is an annual gathering of approximately 1,000 educators and education leaders from across Oklahoma. ILI provides an excellent opportunity for educators to learn about new technologies, classroom strategies, and to network with peers from all parts of the state. Every year, ILI offers an engaging and inspirational keynote lecturer, plus a variety of breakout sessions for teachers, counselors, and administrators. Participants can also explore offerings from education vendors and a technology playground where they can discover new classroom tech tools, which is always a big hit. Our decision to move ILI 100% virtual was actually a really easy one. Not that it was easy to plan, but it was easy to make that decision because the alternative would be canceling. And that's just something we did not want to consider in the 24th year of this conference. After diving into what changes we would need to make to go 100% virtual, it became clear that it's going to take much more time to plan. Since this was our first time planning a virtual conference and none of us had the experience with doing this, we seeked out advice from others who did have that experience. And after these conversations, we were able to get a better grasp of what our next steps should be and how to move forward. We booked an engaging keynote earlier in the year. So we met with them, they were willing to move online, so we were able to check that off. Next areas of focus would be how to create a sense of community, something really important to us, and to promote that networking for educators, and how to maintain that high standard of professional development that attendees have learned to expect from our breakout sessions at ILI. We wanted to do whatever we could do to meet these expectations, and we just had to dive into planning. So we began with redefining our typical planning committees. Looking at the list of previous committees used for an in-person conference, we found that some were no longer needed. We did need some new ones, and we needed to adjust some tasks from other committees that we had previously had. My co-chair, Dr. Mania, and I met with the committees regularly. This was key to catching any hiccups that we didn't plan for. There were plenty since this was our first time to do this. We partnered with an event planning company that helped us with the technology piece and provided tech support from our speakers. We had previously used an online conference app that allowed participants to build their agenda. Since we already had purchased this app, we decided to maximize its offerings and move registration fully online and host all the conference sessions through the app. We refined our planning committees in a way that we were able to focus on how to utilize the app to maximize community conversations through a discussion board. They created a timeline that included topics that were posted before and during the event. That allowed for attendees to respond and start new conversations with other conference goers. We knew that providing high quality interactive breakout sessions, as we had done in the past, would be a priority, but rethink how this could be done. Our innovative staff was able to make this happen through leveraging online tools that allowed us to provide interactive sessions. Not only did these tools provide a much more immersive experience, but now attendees had a new idea for their own toolbox. We wanted to keep session topics that were relevant and focused on providing content that could be immediately used in these educators' classrooms. Our digital playground has always been a fan favorite at our previous events. That's where where educators can play around with new technology, and that's something we wanted to keep. So we had to change the way that was going to be done. The playground was a place where they were able to actually get hands-on experience typically, but we have a great staff who was able to create an online interactive technology playground, so they were still able to play around with tech tools and get that experience. Moving to a virtual format had its challenges, but our team was able to work together to make it a success. And we learned there's actually some benefits from moving online. Jackie?
Great. Yeah, though we did get some feedback that participants would like to have the conference in person in the future. It's hard to break through that. Through this process, we identified a number of benefits that will inform how we plan for ILI in the coming years. First, having a virtual conference allowed us to model effective online pedagogy and adult learning. As Lacey mentioned, we worked really hard to set a high standard for interaction in our sessions. Having a virtual conference allowed us to show educators what effective online learning can look like instead of just talking about it. I think we have all identified the increased access that is inherent in a virtual conference, both in terms of attending and being able to view the sessions beyond the one day at the conference. Our participants, as Danny showed in that map, sometimes come from all over the state and drive for hours to attend ILI. Being virtual, they could attend from their classrooms or their homes. And if they had to miss any of the ILI on the conference day, they could just log into Whova and watch the sessions that they may have missed. Having a virtual conference also allowed us to better connect to resources for attendees to extend their learning beyond the session. By being able to embed links in the conference platforms, attendees could immediately access the resources instead of taking pictures of slides or writing down a URL to maybe review them when they got home from the conference. Because we recorded all of our sessions, as we continue to provide virtual professional development to teachers across the state, we can use clips from those sessions, or we've assigned those sessions as kind of pre-learning to our professional development to get a more flipped format. It really has expanded our own ability to provide high quality professional learning. Because virtual learning doesn't take place in a static time or space, we were allowed to think outside of the one-day parameters for ILI. Although we did host a one-day virtual conference, we built in webinars and 3 post-ILI sessions that came with the registration fee. This allowed us to support educators beyond just that one day of learning and provide more ongoing job-embedded professional development for teachers. Finally, the virtual conference provided a number of analytics that are very difficult to capture when you're face-to-face. When we're face-to-face, we do an attendance count, we get some feedback surveys, but by using the platform, it has provided much more data and continues to provide that data as our attendees access the platform throughout the year. And this data is extremely helpful in planning for next year's ILI. Although it appears that we may be returning to some face-to-face services and may be able to provide more traditional learning experiences soon, We see this disruption and reorganization as an impetus for long-term change within the center. So what are our next steps for our online resources and ILI? One, I think through this process, we were forced to see the benefits of virtual or online learning. Though we had some resources pre-COVID, I think this just forced us to jump further and think bigger than we ever had before. So by taking the best of virtual learning and combining it with the best of face-to-face, I think we can improve our resources and services overall and reach more educators. Two, I think we can reach a larger audience of educators as we increase our presence online. We're starting to publish classroom lessons in multiple modalities to accommodate for whatever school might look like across the state starting in August. Three, we learned that community can be fostered online. We relied heavily on Garrison's work on building a community and online spaces and have intentionally built these structures into our resources so that we can encourage that community as we provide online services. While many people still may prefer face-to-face, I think through our services, we can show that virtual and face-to-face are not exact opposites in that area. Finally, through some trial and error, we did find the best practices in virtual learning are not just moving what we used to do face-to-face online. We will continue to allow ourselves the freedom to innovate, see the larger picture of what is available for learning, and expand what has been done to ensure we are providing the most effective online learning for our stakeholders. So that concludes our presentation. I want to thank you for attending. If you have any questions, we're going to have some time now for anybody in the audience to ask us about our resources or any of the work that we've done. If you have any questions beyond that, you're welcome to contact us, and I put my email address up there as an easy way to contact our team. So thank you, and we will now open it to any questions that you may have.
I don't know if y'all saw the chat, but Simon typed in there that the information about ILI is very interesting. Thank you so much for doing this presentation. It gives me a lot to think about. So that's really great. If anyone does have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or if the presenters are open to you unmuting your mic and asking that way as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to add, Simon, please feel free to reach out to us if you're planning an upcoming event. Like, we're really happy to talk with you. And
it's funny, Dawn. It's funny you should mention that. I'm actually planning an upcoming event. And we're doing our annual Teaching with Technology conference at Oklahoma State University this summer.
Yeah,
and I like your approach here. Is it's not a bug, it's a feature. Last year we canceled it because of COVID, and we just didn't have any idea what to do. And rather than go for like a half-baked solution, we just wanted to gather information. This year we're going all virtual, and hearing your experience validate some of the choices that we're making about this coming conference, but it also gives me some interesting ways to think about this. And so I emailed Brad separately, and I was like, Brad, how can I get in touch with Dawn, Jackie, Danny, and Lacey? Because
let's
I
be
think
friends.
well, that'd be awesome. The lessons that you've learned, I think, apply to just a variety of individuals who are planning events like this. And I really appreciate you sharing these experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was definitely a challenge. It definitely took a team, but I think we showed that it was very successful. We still had over 500 attendees, even switching to virtual in the middle of a pandemic. So we counted that as a win. Although it wasn't the 1,000 that we usually have, I think everybody's events see some dips when it's virtual, but we have continued to have people attend our post ILIs too. So it's been great.
Good.
Well, and Simon, one of the benefits that we see on Gear Up, I'm the project director of one of those Gear Up grants. Lacey and I both work with a lot of rural schools around the state, primarily in our job. But since they're housed and there forever, or for a year maybe, or whatever your agreement is with whoever you're working with, we've used them in some other professional development for teachers. So while we only had maybe 30 or 40 people in a session, we might have had 70 or 80. it lives on online, and we can embed that in the PD that we do around the state. And we've used it several times. So it's been a real benefit for us.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we're thinking about. Well, that we're planning on doing. We're housing everything in an online repository in Canvas, and using a part of Canvas that is widely accessible, not just OSU.
Right.
And the idea that we can continue the conference beyond one day and basically give people access to this repository for an entire year. We're treating that as a major benefit of moving the conference online.
Yeah.
Simon,
I have a
I've actually,
question.
I was just going to mention
We have a
that I've
question?
been,
I was just going to say bravo for your project. I'd love to collaborate with you. I have two NSF grants, and so one of them is doing the PD teacher training. I have them this summer, and we pay stipend $1,400. So I'll get in touch with you to get the teachers filled, because this is our last year of no cost extension. And then another training program is for computer science. We know how they have a supply demand. We really need computer science teachers in the K-12 system. And so that's another NSF grant. And I will have something to come back to Dr. Danny about the weather when I share about my programs.
That's going to be an
next.
awesome
Yeah.
game.
I think it's pretty awesome. You shared your valuable learned lessons and insights, and we kind of went through the same thing. The first year face-to-face, second hybrid, and then third will be virtual totally. And we use a forensic lens, and so that's something that I can share, next 30 minutes. So hope to collaborate with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, you had mentioned the the game I put in our repository. I dumped the Learn website in the chat if anybody wants to click on it. But yeah, that game will be coming out soon, and so we're pretty excited about it. We really worked with a lot of subject matter experts, and I'm married to a meteorologist, so I, by default have to be interested in weather, which I am. I totally am.
Yes.
But but yeah, we pull in risk assessment, emergency management, careers, forecasting, climatology. So we've tested it out with students, and we were a little worried it might be a lot, but it wasn't. Like they all were all in and ready to play it again. So yeah.
I wanted to ask you all on the panel for maybe a little bit of insight, because what I understood is that in order to transition your event to a virtual format, you adopted a platform which really provided a key community function for your group there. And we've seen, I think, a lot of other events like Oklahoma Research Day, for example, have to figure this out and transition to that virtual format. So I was wondering if you could provide some insight to the group, maybe on your kind of thought process or evaluation process of looking for a platform. And as Simon mentioned, for example, he's going to use perhaps some integrated features that are already in Canvas at OSU. So maybe like finding a balance on, acquiring something new versus using what you have and the role of that community function.
Sure. And Lacey can jump in here too, but we actually used this Whova platform the year before when we were face-to-face to try to do some online and face-to-face stuff together. So we had already purchased a couple years of this platform. So we were kind of forced into using it for our virtual platform. Though I think Lacey and I, when we were planning this conference to go virtual, we decided to go with an event planning company and to use this platform, mostly because we didn't have a lot of experience. And both of those things did have a lot of experience, and they'd done this before, and it was ready-made and easy for us to do. Also, the platform of Whova is pretty inexpensive, so it's something that we didn't have to pay a lot of money for. However, our reflection on this, as Lacey and I thought about this, is we had all of the capacity in the center to do this without the platform and the event planning company. We just didn't know that because we'd never done it before. So it can definitely be done with both. Now that we're more confident, we know what would need to be done. This could easily be built in Canvas. This could easily be built on some other type of platform. Our goal, though, was to build community, was to get people talking outside of the sessions. Like Lacey had mentioned, we built in some great kind of prompts throughout the day for teachers to respond to, just fun things, so that they could be talking to each other, so they could be talking outside of sessions. So I think if we didn't use the platform, we would still try to find a way to do that, because the networking and the making friends is really what a lot of people love about conferences, and we didn't want to lose that. So if you feel confident, you can build this in your own, but if not, it's a super easy, very inexpensive platform to use. So I don't know if Lacey has anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree with everything you said. And like, we even talked about after the conference, we were like, okay, next year, if we have to do this virtual, or even if we do a hybrid model, we got this. And we did go ahead and purchase the conference app for the next 2 years, just because it is really inexpensive, which is a bonus. And we can move everything we need to this one platform, so things aren't kind of spread out, and we can house our videos there from our sessions, which is really nice. We have that discussion board. We can push out announcements through it. So it just has a lot of things that's already been built. So why reinvent the wheel, especially if it's so affordable? There's a lot of conference apps out there that's going to run like $10,000 or more, and that seems crazy to me, just seeing like that you can do this on a lesser end. I've been helping another department at OU. They're planning a conference this summer, and they are actually embedding a lot of it through Canvas, and it's looking really good. So it can be done. You just have to maybe think about things, and it's really helpful to have someone who can maybe give some advice on things to think about if you have never done before. That was really key for us, is having some advice from others.
I think it might be also important just to point out from our perspective, we were trying to build the community as a first and foremost. We knew we could deliver content, and having those resources like another partner that helped us package and put those things on and record. And as Jackie mentioned, we had all the resources, we could have done that, but in the time frame, it would have been really short. But what that afforded us was an opportunity to focus on the actual content development. So what were people providing for folks in a meaningful experience to keep them engaged, and how would that continue forward? So that allowed our teams to focus a lot on the design of their breakout sessions. What meaningful experiences did they want for their people that were coming, and less about the fear of, oh my gosh, we're going online. What do I click? How do I share? Where are the groups? I don't know how to do a poll. So there was some pieces to that gave us an opportunity to maybe put some of that work somewhere else. So our folks that are used to designing really quality and engaging learning experiences could focus on that in this new space. So we're not saying that you can't, but considering the timeline that we had, we thought it was really beneficial to leverage someone else so we could help transition our folks to that space in that facilitation role, which was vital for us to pull off what we believe to be still the same caliber of an event that we're used to doing. So that was important to us. So I think that's important to point out.
Thank you all. That's a very good insight.